Every time, everything's moved. For the meeting on Thursday, May 7th, 2020, did everyone have an opportunity to review them?
So move.
Yes.
So I have a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second, Paul
Any
McGurk.
any discussions or changes? Hearing none, all for approving, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are passed.
I'm here. Bill, I
Yeah.
just joined on the phone.
Oh, thank you. Just
This
see
is-
it as a number.
This is Dave McBride. I'll abstain because I wasn't present at that meeting.
Okay, David, thank you. But you did have an opportunity to review them.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on. Old business, the business outreach. So as we discussed at the last meeting, and although it was a little abbreviated and through the new format, is what we were proposing to do pre-COVID and what we've been doing since has changed to some bit. And some of it'll be we will be going over when we do the staff reports on what's coming up, because we did take some initiative on it with the direction of the commission from the last meeting about being able to get out some forums to businesses. So not to get into the specifics of it, I'll pass. I think Sam will be addressing that one as he coordinated the setup for it. So we are trying to do some additional outreach vis-a-vis the Zoom platforms. The one that we held after our meeting on the Tuesday following, I believe there were 50 people that participated from outside, which is a good number, but I know that the number should be larger than that. I asked each of you to use that call that Lauren had given us from previous we were going to do for the forum for the March meeting, and to use that list in outreach to get feedback. And to this point, I've given some feedback of the ones I've discussed, and I know Heather has also. But it's really imperative for us to be doing that, even if it's just making the phone call to let the businesses know that we're here. Prior, we were focused primarily on restaurants, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, but we have a whole bevy of businesses that have been impacted by this. So I haven't really stopped at just my list per se. There are some businesses that actually came through this better than they did last year, just because of what was going on. Landscapers, builders, there's been still activity that has been transpiring, but on the other hand, there are a lot of businesses that have seen just huge declines. So we need to speak to them all, as far as I'm concerned, because that's really what our charge is at the bare essential of it. Any comments on that? Heather, do you want to comment on the people you've spoken with that you gave us?
Sure. Most people that I talked to were just in, I got to do what I got to do and fill out whatever forms I have to fill out mode. Let's do what we possibly can do as far as restaurants. When I spoke to the majority of people, it was right around May 20th when things were getting implemented. And the retail I spoke to all seemed in good shape. Some people were doing the best they've ever done. So it's just kind of what you've been doing in this time to get your product out there, I think. So retail, they were just about to start, and following all the guidelines. Some of the restaurants were upset, if they don't have the outdoor capacity to have anyone come in and be at their restaurant, and we're worried about now the challenge of having those that do have outdoor taking away the business that they were getting just from curbside, which is legit. So, I think for the most part, everyone felt like they knew what was going on. No one I talked to was in the dark at all. And I've talked to a couple people after that. And I also kind of purposely am waiting to kind of reach out again after a couple weeks to see how things have changed.
Just out of curiosity, just for the other members, the response that you were reaching out, I think that's the key also, is were they surprised, receptive, happy? I mean,
I have a personal relationship with, happened to be, I think you purposely gave me a list that I knew, like I know them. So they weren't surprised. It didn't seem, because I've checked in with them and wearing other hats. So the only response that I had that was different was chapter 1, you know, I think was talking to me more of from a governmental side of it instead of a, you know, patron slash, it was more like, oh, if you're with the town, here's what I think. So no one seemed surprised. And everyone seemed overall that they were in the know. I felt like nobody was kind of scrambling and asking me for any more information. I gave everyone the website. I felt like it's probably, they were probably happy to know they had a pipeline if they needed it.
Just to tag on that, even some of the people I've spoke with, and I heard of both. I mean, I heard people complaining just for the sake of complaining, really, but at least there's someone was listening to them. And I relayed that over because, as you said, like chapter 1, we don't have the outdoor seating. So well, I can't create that for you, you know, but I know other restaurants have done some creative marketing on their own, trying to adapt to it. But I really, as I stated last meeting, but to keep on reiterating, is between Paige, Sam, and Lauren, you know, they've been working nonstop on this. So from an outreach standpoint, they really have put up a huge amount of information on the webpage. And I know they've been out there. I know Paige has been out there, you know, reaching out to the businesses, and some have been less responsive than others, but it's the aspect that we're reaching out, because this does provide that opportunity to do that. I got 2 pages on my screen now. So any other comments from anybody? Anyone else had any, maybe they didn't report in, but they've had contact with businesses that they want to just touch base on? Or
just a reflection on the restaurants in the downtown Mystic area. They're sensitive to the difference between the weekends and the weekdays, and 1, a bit more crowded, but 2, the people who are visiting seem not, and this sort of fits our later discussion about COVID impacts, but people seem not to be as attentive to the COVID guidelines among the people who are strangers to the staff. So those who are local seem to be more supportive of the guidelines than those who are day trip visitors.
I guess from that standpoint, is no matter where they're visiting from, since this is a national and global thing, I think we're all working under the same parameters. Now, whether they want to observe them here as opposed to elsewhere, I can't even comment on that. My observation has been, and I've been out during the week also, is in general, people are kind of cognizant of the distancing. The problem with I've seen in Mystic is there's a little bit of space issues. You know, the sidewalks are a little narrow, but I don't know how you even address the issues if we're not the enforcement arm of social distancing. I just think it's really from a standpoint of some people are better at it or more cognizant and respective other than others. And I've seen that around other places also, stores and such. So.
And John's big enough to set up one-way paths on either side of the bridge in order to get across, because it's not safe. If you've got only 4 feet wide, it's hard to do 6-foot distancing unless you jump in the water. So he's put one way in, and he's been making changes in the signage in order to improve the performance of people.
We'll keep trying.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the correspondence, Craig, and I appreciate that. And you know, Mystic's an old town. The sidewalks are narrow.
Right.
They're narrow with polls up and such. So you know, I think, as John said, we'll keep trying our best to do that, but really we rely upon people to be respectful of each other.
Sure.
So,
Bill, can I make a comment?
but Paige?
So one of the things I noticed when I went door to door in Mystic, I think maybe all of us, particularly in local government, assume that everyone is tuned in to the governmental voice at all times, whether it's fed, state, local, other. And even though it seemed like there was plenty of information from a governor's executive order stating that you can do outdoor seating and even retail, and going door to door, I was surprised to find out how many people really were not in the know. They did not seem to have a solid grasp on the details in terms of what they're going to be allowed to do. Retail, I told many of them, you're allowed to put some merchandise outside your store. They said, oh, all right, yeah, we didn't know that. Even if they're not looking to sell merchandise, simply having something outside their door, let people know, hey, this place is open, I think would be helpful. So it really is incumbent upon us to help educate the business community, because obviously they're normally overwhelmed with operations, but they are definitely overwhelmed these days in trying to react to this unknown.
Paige, something just to note that maybe we can figure out at some point. I think the people that aren't in the know are the people that aren't really engrossed in the downtown Mystic merchants scene, because not everyone's required to follow our pages or, you know, be on our emails strand or open it and read it. So, but I feel like that's most likely. So there is a kind of a way to dissect who could potentially fall behind with anything that we're trying to get out there, just by knowing who is not really connected to that scene. Because I feel like that anything that Sam puts out and Lauren, like that's getting pumped into them for the most part. But of course, there's just some people that aren't on those pages and checking and all of that.
Thanks, Heather. Paige, do you want to speak? Oh,
No, it was all set. Thanks.
okay. So next up on the agenda is our COVID-19 business impact.
Oh, Bill, can I touch on that business outreach before we move on?
Oh, sure. I'm sorry, Sam. Go ahead.
Not a problem at all. Thanks. So as we discussed, you know, when you reach out to these businesses, it's really helpful to make that a two-way conversation. Unless we get feedback, like the type of feedback that Heather was able to collect, you know, we're really just taking our best guess or best estimate as to what kind of resources are really going to be helpful for folks. Not having a lot of feedback up until this point, our first scheduled, call it a webinar, it's, you know, this outreach forum is Monday, June 15th at 10 a.m. and that's a Zoom call. The event is it's on the website on our events calendar right now, and folks can actually go to that website now and register, and then they'll get the reminders and then they'll get the link. So many of you may be familiar with Miranda Creative. They're a marketing consulting firm out of the Norwich area. And, you know, what's really helpful in this circumstance is that Maria and her team, they have been working with all their clients very closely through this entire event. So they actually have a really firm grasp on what kinds of issues all their clients are dealing with. And that's just going to be broadly applicable to other businesses and Groton businesses. So what we've done is arrange for Maria and her staff to make this presentation and then be available for questions and discussion at this Zoom call on the 15th at 10 a.m. We'll also be recording it, but certainly if people are going to be on there and they can ask questions live, that's the best way for us to get that kind of feedback. The topic really is about this idea of pivoting. One of the specialties of Miranda Creative is it's always been digital marketing. Ever since digital marketing was a thing, they were really been ahead of the curve. And I know businesses in Groton have, they're all at different levels with regards to how they're using digital marketing. And I think most of them have realized it's been a big help through this entire event. But I think that Maria is going to be able to give some people some insights in terms of how to really use this to the best possible advantage, and how it can be a part of expanding revenue streams, or diversifying your business a little bit, or even reinventing yourself. We see this as a marathon and not a sprint. And we're hoping that the sooner that these businesses can move towards diversifying and stabilizing and becoming more resilient, the better the business community in Groton is going to be. So really would encourage you to get out, email those contact lists and invite them to this event. And then again, the feedback we get at this event will help us shape what future events are going to look like.
Question, now that we're back to doors beginning to open, is it possible to reopen the question of business cards in order to drop them off so people can?
Did he cut out?
I'll let Paige take that. As we've said, I think we're open to it.
Yeah, we have discussed it. I think we want to make a direct correlation between those who are actually going out and doing the outreach and the business cards. So I think that's kind of where we were at. We wanted to basically hand those out to those who are actually accomplishing that task. That's kind of where we left off. As a refresher, before this COVID situation happened, the big push was the plastics response. And each one of you had been assigned roughly 20 businesses that we had identified as being probably directly impacted by the Groton plastics reduction program. And we were asking that you go out and make contact, and then we were going to try to coordinate the business cards. Obviously that changed as a result of COVID, but I think the theory is still the same. If we knew some people are actually going to go out and do this, we would provide the cards. If the outreach was not occurring, be honest, we're wondering what is the benefit of the cards?
I'd appreciate the cards that would facilitate outreach.
It also, Paige, we were waiting on it, and there again, because of COVID, everyone was asked to create a Gmail account or a specific account because we could not use the towns, which makes perfect sense. And I don't know where Lauren was on collecting that. I know I did one, and I believe Craig did one, and Heather,
Right.
I think, supplied one also. So I would say if for the ones that have supplied that email that are basically making a commitment, maybe we'll start with those cards and see how it goes handing them out and the impact they have. Because we have been talking about it, and I'm not talking about huge amounts of cards because I have enough of my own cards anyway, but it's just something to be able to hand someone, as long as we're getting the information back. And that's the key, is the email addresses. It's not just a matter of handing a card out. That's just more of a point of contact. So.
Thanks, Bill. That's all I had on that topic, but certainly encourage people to use next week to get the word out.
Thank you, Sam. And also there's the meeting coming up. Isn't there another meeting on the 8th?
I can touch on that, Bill.
Right. So there are other things that are coming up that we can reach out to. So let's not just, make sure that everyone's aware of the various things. But I was leaving that for you to touch on it later, Paige. So I wasn't trying to step on that. But okay, COVID-19 business impacts, which we've kind of have been going over with us anyway. I don't know what, I mean, I can tell you what I've gotten, you know, and I think Heather said it also, is there's some that have had the best business they've had in years and other ones, you know, not so much. But in general, they've all had to try to adapt, and we have lost some businesses. They've closed their doors. They just, you know, basically said, we're not going to reopen and such. I don't know how much more we wanted to discuss on that, but I know, Craig, you wanted to mention, you briefly touched on it, but you wanted to include about the sidewalks and such a Mystic.
Well, I think John is on it. The issue is just facilitating one-way walking on the two sides of the bridge. And it's a test of time in terms of what signage works and what doesn't and what catches people's eye. And when it gets busier, it gets harder. But John's been gradually adding more signage in order to make sure that that ultimately is successful. And the only other issue in downtown Mystic is that the Drawbridge ice cream team seems to crowd up people sitting and eating their ice cream, which makes it tough to socially distance because it's hard to eat ice cream with a mask on.
That's a good sign, though, to see that the people are out eating ice cream again. So, anyone else want to discuss? I mean, as I said, I think most of our topics have been around the whole response to the COVID-19 and such. And I know we kind of put it out as a separate thing, but we kind of covers it on the business outreach for this moment. But if there's anyone else wants to bring up something specific that we should be discussing, I'm happy to do that.
I think that I have the authority to say this, but I sit on the Historic District Commission, and we have collectively decided to loosen up signage requirements for anything that, for the restaurants or any, you know, for displaying how things are should be done as far as COVID regulations and any kind of whatever they need to say to get their customers in and feeling safe and all of that. That won't be an issue, at least for the rest of summer.
Do the businesses know that okay, we're letting you do this for now?
I'm telling you, but I don't know if that hasn't been,
Right.
no one's typed that up. I haven't seen it in black and white, but I've sat in 2 meetings where it's been unanimously agreed upon.
Well, the one that comes to mind is Mystic Roasters, and I know that's over in Stonington, but they have to try to get people around the back of the building, so they got signage all over the whole front of it, and to direct people. So, but that was all something they just threw up.
Heather, this is George.
Yes, George.
Do you, Bill, I was asking Heather, do the folks in Mystic have any kind of promotion to attract or lure people to come and visit some specific outlets in Mystic? Is there some kind of promotion or marketing or some kind of a gimmick that Mystic area downtown merchants are doing? Or have you thought about doing something like that?
No, not right now. I mean, not everyone's even opened their doors at this point. I think they're just trying to get their feet wet with how to make everything work. I don't know of anything in the works. The problem right now in their eyes is they can't even get you. They can have day trippers, but there's no real tourists coming from anywhere because there's nowhere for them to stay. So
well, they can still order from line and whatnot. So I was wondering.
Oh, each restaurant has their own stuff going on, nothing collective.
So no. I was wondering if the association may want to create some kind of a lure or I mean, I don't want to be preemptive to say that, some kind of a pitch to attract more interest in downtown Mystic takeaway foods and whatnot, in conjunction with at a later time when they can come in and hand over some kind of a credit pass or whatever, because they bought some food during the COVID period that entitles them 10% or 15% of coming and picking up food,
So what
Well,
I've been told,
dining in, or something like that.
so, well, first of all, Lauren spearheaded something similar to that I'm sure she can touch upon. But what I've been told is originally those that were doing curbside, their margins are so slight that what they were doing when they were trying to get people to just come out of their house to order something, they were giving more discounts then. And what's happened is they have to hand input a lot of their credit cards. So that's a factor because they get charged more on it. I guess the insurance is higher for every swipe that they have to hand input because, it's not as easy. So as far as discounts, I've seen them, they're out there, but I know some people have pulled back a little on that. Lauren, are you out there? Is Lauren here?
I'm here.
Yeah, so you have been doing things like that for all of Groton, not just downtown Mystic.
George, we did do earlier when this whole thing started, we did a Eat Local, Win Local contest where we encouraged people to go out and eat at our restaurants, get takeout in any restaurant in Groton. They had to spend $15 at least 2 restaurants. So a minimum of $30 total at 2 different restaurants. And they were entered into a drawing to win a $25 gift card. So by doing that, we got roughly 50 submittals, a few repeats. And I believe the total was about $4,500 in receipts that were submitted. So it was a successful campaign. I thought something we'd never done before. We drew 10 winners. 10 winners got gift certificates to various restaurants in Groton. So we're looking to maybe do that once the retail and service businesses get up and running.
So my challenge always in life is trying to keep things simple. So if I'm searching for food at Mystic, I am not going to be aware of local and that. So would it be something that the downtown Mystic merchants could use that brand? I don't want to delve too long into this, but my thought was maybe they can duplicate it so that it'll permeate the websites and web searches and whatnot, because the focal point is a lot of people are interested in eating at Mystic or searching for Mystic, or they may want to go to Paul's Pasta in Thames Street. So if the downtown Mystic merchants were to take on the task of using that same brand name, and maybe they could promote it in the meanwhile, what I'm trying to say is, why don't we start something going on now? When you started it, it was a month or 2 ago, but I want to help these folks here to warm up the public that Mystic is opening, and thereby they can start purchasing in advance or start building up a kind of discount feature or whatever, or, eat local, pay local campaign can carry on, but with a caveat of putting Mystic people or Mystic Association to promote it, so that it comes out on the social media.
Yeah, George, I agree with that. I agree with the thought process of Mystic, but we always have to be cognizant as we represent Groton, and Groton is Mystic. It's Groton is Route 12. Groton. So I think the way Lauren did it, that spread it across. If the local Mystic merchants wants to do something, we'll support it. But from an EDC standpoint, I really don't want to get into just targeting one specific area. And from what I've observed is Mystic's already drawn people. So I see a lot of restaurants right in my neighborhood in Groton that when I go to work that could use the people, and they don't draw from the tourists per se. So, that we have to look a little bit more from a bigger picture and but Mystic is always on our map because that's the biggest draw from a tourist standpoint and such. So anyone else?
Probably you didn't hear.
Paige?
Well,
Bill,
I have.
probably you didn't hear what I said.
Oh, no, I did,
What
George.
was
I agree with
saying
what you're
is-
saying. I just want to make sure we stay focused
Yeah,
on
but what I'm saying very specifically is for downtown Mystic merchants.
correct.
as
And
an
that's why
idea to take on the
downtown Mystic
campaign
merchants should be
and do it.
dealing with that from standpoint. And I think we would be here as a commission to support that. But that's
Right.
really for them to come up
Okay.
and let us know how we can support it. Paige, you were going to speak?
All right.
I'm not
Thank
sure
you.
that
George, I wasn't disagreeing. So, yep, Paige.
I'm not sure the best time to bring it up. Within the staff report, there are several items that deal with COVID-19 and business activity. Last month, when we addressed COVID-19, I pulled those out and we kind of took the first half of the staff report. I can either wait and deal with them until we get there, or we can jump in and talk about some of these. I think it's germane to the conversation.
Well, I'll tell you what we'll do then. I'm just going to go over the plastic ordinance, because that's really just a brief bit of old business to bring us up to speed on. My chair report basically has gone through with what we're discussing, and then we'll go right to you after the plastics then, Paige. So
Okay.
just to move on, and then we'll pick up the COVID again. Plastic ordinance, where I addressed last meeting, there was also we sent our letter out, and then there was a follow-up letter dated May the 5th from the Conservation Commission to the town council. They agreed to, although it's still important that we keep it, ready to go, to a 3 to 6 month delay. There was no action taken at that point, which is fine. And then
Actually, are going to bring it up. It's going to be on the agenda next week to discuss.
I was going to mention that. So I said, my understanding is Leanne also brought it up at the last Cal meeting. So it will be addressed the next Cal meeting coming up on the 8th, I believe. 9th. So anyone that wants to just voice their opinions, whatever, to our liaisons or to the council, feel free. I believe the advocacy group also came out that they were looking for only a 3 month. As far as I'm concerned, 3 to 6 is where we are, but whatever we can do for the businesses. So I would encourage everyone to support the conversation at least. So we're not taking a position of we're against. We're just trying to give a reprieve to the businesses to take something off their plate at the time. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that. And as I said, Leanne did bring it up at the last meeting. I did see that. So that's where we are with the plastics. Is there any new business? Hearing no, I'm going to go right to the staff report, and then Paige can get into the COVID response that the staff has been doing. So Paige?
If you want to take a look at the staff report, basically the first page deals with COVID almost exclusively. We've continued to have quite a focus through May in responding to that with an economic focus. Obviously, the May 20th deadline was the phase 1 reopening, and it impacted restaurants, retail, offices, museums, zoos. I think the largest impact really were on restaurants and allowing the outdoor activity. I do believe that as I mentioned earlier, we found that retail, they weren't as focused, and maybe retail and Mystic might beg to differ, but it seemed like there was a heavy emphasis on restaurant, not necessarily the retail. Also, what we noticed initially, there was guidance and a plan to open up barbershops and salons roughly 2 days prior, there was a decision by the governor that we were not ready, and basically prohibited the opening of such businesses. I think that was a shock to many, given that they were prepping to open and they were not allowed to. So at this point, we're eyeing June 20th, and we have heard recently that it's possible that the governor might allow opening a few days prior. We heard that yesterday from DECD. So I think we're awaiting some more definitive guidance on that front. Regarding outdoor dining and retail, the planning staff did an outstanding job in actually responding to that executive order, crafting a quick but simple application that would allow outdoor dining. But of course, we needed to know what is exactly that you're proposing so that we could give this temporary authorization through the summer. So we actually have, I have a spreadsheet for me, 12 businesses, restaurants that actually have applied. Most of them gain their approval or they're in a pending mode to gain approval. The longest any of them are taking is literally about 2 days, no more than 3. I'm just going to read through: the Spot Cafe, the Mariner, Mystic Manana Cafe, 99 Barley Head Brewery, Sisters Cafe, Ryan's Pub, Beard Brewing, Friar Tuck's, Pickpockets Deli in Pizzetta. We're still getting some that are coming in, but I think the high volume that initially came in has tapered off a little bit. Again, I want to basically say I thought that the town did an outstanding job in responding to that, and most people are pretty pleased.
Paige, the question quick.
Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. So has any been denied, just so when I'm going out and I'm using the correct, because last time I talked to you, I don't think there had been, have any been denied yet?
None have been denied. I will state that forgetting the name of the restaurant, there was one restaurant in Mystic that
The Amelia?
yes, they sought approval to use the town's pump station parking lot. And although it was entertained, there wasn't enough space for the town staff to get in to service the pump station and use land that we own and accommodate their request. So we did not allow them to use property that we use. I don't really classify that as a denial, but it was something that could not be entertained as a result of some limited spatial availability. But I don't think we've had any denials where we've said that's not going to work. We don't have enough room, or we think there's a safety issue. We haven't had anything like that. All set? Okay. So we did have a Zoom meeting on May 12th, which predated the May 20th phase 1 reopening. And that went well. We had over 50 attendees. Probably the most significant presenter in that was Ledge Light. And we are planning, we will actually have another one, a second one, Monday, June 8th at 10. And that's in preparation for the next phase 2 reopening, that phase 2 really is focused on indoor dining for the most part. I sat on a webinar today dealing with that. There are a lot of details. I probably took 2 or 3 pages of notes, but if you think about every facet of indoor dining, the things that we have taken for granted for years, even the salt and pepper shakers that are on the tabletops, those are gone. Condiments are going to have to be of a smaller size. Everything becomes disposable because they're having to clean everything in between patrons. So the way it's going to happen is quite different. But anyway, we will have that guidance, that Zoom call on June 8th, and hoping to provide more information like we did on May 12th. And half of the Zoom call is devoted to Q&A. And that actually went well. We had a number of questions that came in the last time, and I would imagine there will be more on Monday.
Paige, can I just chip in on that real quick? To Craig, to your earlier question about, folks having varying degrees of compliance in downtown Mystic, we would really encourage any business to join this webinar on Monday at 10. The chief of police will be on there, as well as representation from Ledge Light. So we totally understand that people have concerns at this time. That's why we hold this. And the Q&A is because we can't even really anticipate what kinds of questions people are going to have at this time. It's a constantly evolving scenario. So the best thing is, even though you can catch a recording later, the best thing is to be on there live and to ask those types of questions. Really, it's a free, an open forum for asking questions and getting that kind of direct feedback. And if people on the line can't answer the questions, then they can go ahead and do the research and follow back up. So I agree with Paige. It was a really successful series of questions on May, and we're back in May, and hopefully we'll do the same thing this time. Thanks, Paige.
The May
Yeah,
one was very good.
It was a real team effort as well, in that we had a number of representatives. We had the mayor, town manager, OPDS staff. We had, I think we had, the police chief was on, Ledge Light, and we had others as well. So the idea is really to have this united front and addressing the fact that we understand this is a problem, and we're trying to do what we can to allow these businesses to reopen and provide whatever resources and information we can. We touched earlier about Lauren's effort regarding the restaurant listing. That's ongoing, continues to evolve, but she's also added another drop down that focuses on retail and service related businesses. As I said, we don't want to forget about retail. It's easy to get focused on restaurants. There's a lot of talk about that, but retail is something that we need to keep on the forefront as well. Sam already talked about Miranda Creative, June 15th. Two more items dealing with COVID. We have recently, actually this week, launched a partnership with a company called Nava Retail. They are a retail analytics and research-based company. Sam and I have been talking with them for probably a year and a half or more, and it just never really came to be. However, in light of this COVID situation, it seemed the most appropriate today. They're going to help us in doing some research regarding retail. And someone might say, well, why are you doing that? Retail has been crushed. Now is the time we really need to try to understand what's going on and the impact, so that, as Sam mentioned earlier, maybe we can help them pivot to some degree and find out what is that next step that they're going to jump into. So the immediate focus with Nava Retail and the town of Groton is launching a survey, and it's actually a 4-phase survey. So they're doing the first one now. Think of it as immediate COVID impact. Then they're hoping to do another one later in the summer. They will do one in the fall. And can everyone hear me okay? Bill, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. They'll do the third one in the fall, and then the last one will be done just after the holidays. So what we're really looking for is some trends analysis. And they also have the ability to provide some retail analytics to us based off of credit card transactions, and I believe also maybe some phone data. So we're really hopeful that that's going to help us understand how we've been impacted and maybe how we can help some businesses move forward. So all of that information that's gathered will be made available to the public. It'll be made available to decision makers, elected officials, so we can really understand rather than guess. Everyone kind of wants to have a theory as to what's going on, but we really need to know. And by going to the source, we think that's probably the best way to do it. Last comment I had regarding COVID. Last week, I sat on a webinar with DECD, we don't often talk about community development, but that is a big part of what we focus on as well. And we receive community development block grant money for housing, and we have a number of other projects, special projects that deal with the community. The Department of Housing they have received money from the federal government dealing with COVID CDBG, and there are communities that are large cities in the state that receive direct federal allocations. That would be an urban core community, Bridgeport, New Haven, Stanford, Hartford. We are not one of those, and we shouldn't be confused with those. We fall under, we don't receive direct federal money. We receive federal money indirectly, but directly from the state, and we have to compete for our CDBG money. In this case, we will be competing for COVID CDBG money. First phase is about $7 million amongst maybe 120 municipalities in the state. We've been advised there'll be a second phase with about $11 million later. We are positioning ourselves and brainstorming to go after as much of that as we can. The focus is on COVID preparedness, prevention, and response. We probably will go after some supplies, some stockpiling of supplies. We are looking to try to find ways to possibly help businesses as well. We have a few ideas that we're dealing with right now, but we're going to have a pretty quick turnaround on that. Likely, we'll have to submit a letter of intent by early July. So this is extremely fast for us, but we're up for it. And I think we see this as an opportunity to get some funding and help us respond in some way to this pandemic. That ends my comments regarding COVID. I don't know if anyone has any comments on what I've said so far. Okay, just finishing out the staff report or the update, wayfinding master plan improvements. I did do 2 presentations to both Rotary clubs in town, and we are interested in we have actually requested some funding from both, and both received that request positively. The dollar amount is not yet set, but both are going to be entertaining that in the future. The town had allocated $50,000 for an initial beginning on implementing the program. All told, we probably need about $300,000 to do it townwide. But phase 1, hopefully we can get a couple things done. We want to do something in downtown Mystic, and we also want to do something at the intersection of 117 and Route 1, and the corridor that leads to 95. So that's our focus on that. Neighborhood assistance programming, you can read in the report. There are, I believe, 6 applications we received, and the town council has been addressing those. We handled the initial intake, and once they are approved by the council, we will forward them to the state. Significant money, tax credit money, it has no impact, no cost, I should say, to Groton, but significant positive impact to the town and helping with some of these projects. Mystic Education Center is still moving along quite well. I touch on this every month. We're focused on the zoning language proposal, focused on what we're going to use the Pratt building for in terms of recreation. We are focused on the engineering, the master plan for the overall project, and also how we will be partnering with Restler Homes on some of the financing for some of the infrastructure and public amenities. If people have not yet gone to the website for that project, I would encourage you to do so. You'll find that in the report. Groton Heights still in the same position. Actually, we're on this call. Thayer Mahan called a second ago. So they're in the mix. They're obviously impacted by COVID as well. Regarding Sealy School, I would encourage people to go to that website for some updates for Trinity Square. Recently, they've fenced the property. They're preparing to do some environmental remediation on site, and that's a precursor to actually demolishing the building. But they are moving along. They have a lot of momentum in getting that project done. Colonel Ledyard School, we did meet with the town council in executive session and talking about the preferred developers concept. And we will keep those conversations going with the developer and set the stage for bringing that developer to the council in short order. Pleasant Valley School, we've gotten some updated photos recently, and we're getting a lot of hits online, a lot of interest, and we will issue that RFP this summer. In terms of website metrics, people can read that on their own, but we're still seeing a fairly increased level of activity as a result of COVID. On the last page of the report, you can see some of the key property development updates. Chipotle planned to open later in July. Jersey Mike's also anticipated opening early July. Construction work on the Oyster Club. And we've experienced, well, basically demolition at 3 Water Street. The building was there one day and it's gone the next. Upcoming meetings, I already talked about June 8th, this Monday. Also, the town of Groton's offices will open on the same day. Obviously, we'll be following safety and health protocol, but that is our official opening day. And as a reminder, June 20th is the business reopening for phase 2 in Connecticut, but it could happen slightly sooner than that. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Any questions for Paige? Comments? Also, just to let you know, the Fishman Restaurant, as far as I know, and it's been going on for years, but they will be opening in June. So I assume that's the June 20th date. He opted not to do the outdoor dining, but that'll be coming online hopefully by the 20th also on that. All right, hearing other comments, we'll go on to liaison reports. Adam, you'll go up you first. Don't see a report in the package, but you're always very thorough.
Yeah, sorry about that. I missed it this month.
No, that's fine.
I think it's good to see everyone. Just a couple of quick updates from last month. We want to thank the town, John and Paige and Greg Hanover. We received the revised water taxi dock gift offer. So the Nautilus water taxi dock lives on, and we're hoping that's going to happen and be in place for next summer. It was redone, if you remember, because the Navy bid the project and could not get the price down into the range of the grant from Connecticut Port Authority. So the town graciously took it on, and we'll try to bid this, and we're all very optimistic. I'm processing that now with the commanding officer, and everyone up the chain all the way to the headquarters for our region is well aware, and they're expecting the package. So hopefully this will smoothly run right into bidding and construction by the town this fall and winter. The other exciting thing going on right now is the Office of Economic Adjustment in DoD, same group that gives that runs the Joint Land Use Study Program and provides grants for that, is granting money for defense community infrastructure projects. And the town has a really potentially great winner in that competitive program with the Goss Cove Sewer Pump Station upgrade project. So those three, the triad there of John and Paige and everyone are really are behind that, and it's going to provide potentially 70% of the project paid for by the federal government if we score well with that. And I think we're gonna be in fairly good shape. Bob Ross with the Connecticut Office of Military Affairs is influential in that world and is also promoting this very hard. So I think we've got strong backing. Bob mentioned that he'll have the governor and our legislative body, our congressional delegation, sending a letter of endorsement as well which is going to probably boost that even higher. So we're all really excited about that. Very short turnaround. By the next meeting, if you have one in July, we'll actually have submitted the proposal, and we'll hear shortly thereafter if we're in the running. And I just wanted to mention, I really value the Explore More Groton newsletters. I forward those to military families groups that we have on base. And a lot of those folks, you know, I'm sure some have small businesses, but for the most part, they're consumers. And the contest you sent out for spending locally in restaurants was really cool, as well as the recent business support information you sent. I think that is being received very well. So kudos to the group for sending that out as well. I will continue to, I try to target who I send them to, and I encourage people to sign up for Explore More Groton's mailings that way. So we're reaching a few people that way as well. That's about all
Thanks,
I
Adam.
have, unless anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Jill.
RTM had a meeting on May 13th, and we did two approvals. We approved a fourth quarter transfer of almost $32,000 for a couple items that needed a little more money. And then the RTM also approved the purchase agreement with Donmar for the William Seeley School. So exciting to see that move forward. That was it.
Thank you very much. And John, would you like to share anything or any comments you'd like to add?
I don't think so at this time. I think pretty much everything's been covered. I appreciate everyone's efforts with reaching out to businesses. That's so important right now. And I'm looking forward to the outreach on Monday.
Thank you very much. So any other business to come before the commission? Yes, Paige.
Mentioned a couple notes. They're not positive, but it's important to put some context on COVID. Some people may have thought once we reopen, everything just goes back the way it was, and it might not. We had received an initial notice weeks back from PCC Structurals that they had a significant layoff, over 100 employees, or I think it was close to 150. We've received a second round of notification regarding layoffs. I don't remember the exact number. I don't know if you do, John.
162.
Oh, that's the Marriott.
Oh, the other one, 70 something, wasn't it?
Yeah. So
70-ish.
PCC Structurals has two rounds of layoffs. It appears that they're not coming back anytime soon. The second point, John just mentioned 162 jobs, permanent layoffs at Marriott, Mystic Marriott. We just received that notification. So I was even surprised about the Marriott, because I can understand small business may not have deep pockets, but the notification actually came out of Philadelphia. It's not like this just impacts this particular facility. That's a nationwide corporate decision that is impacting a number of properties and hotels. And, it's not like we have a strip of comparable hotels like the Marriott, like Hilton, Wyndham. We don't have many of that scale, and yet we're experiencing a layoff of 162 jobs at the Mystic Marriott, and it's just a little sobering, I suppose, in seeing this take place. It doesn't mean we can't come back and we can't maybe be better, but it's a significant hit, and it's real. And I do suspect we're going to have more news to come over the next few weeks, possibly even after the summer. So just be on the lookout for that. And we are experiencing changes with businesses and jobs.
Paige, if I could also just to touch on the layoffs for those two companies for context, we do a major employers listing every year for the audit for the town, and both of those companies fall within the top 10. PCC Structurals was number 6 last year with 270 employees. So that's quite a big number in their workforce. And Mystic Marriott was 191 employees last year. So just to add some context to that.
And I did just find the PCI numbers. The original layoffs were 71 layoffs, and they did an additional 12 though. They sent a second warn notice. So it's a total of 83 now.
Okay.
Was it for them, the structure, was there any reasoning behind it? Was it or just shut down and contracts or?
Yeah, exactly. And I stepped out to get those numbers. I didn't hear what Paige said, but I'm sure he probably touched on that these are remote decisions that affect us, not made locally.
Yeah, I know the Marriott because having a daughter that does a lot of that, theirs is a global, they with the travel business, Marriott has been impacted. So they've been scrambling everywhere to try to cut some cost and such. And yeah, it's amazing that it comes all the way to Mystic Groton, but it's because of the impact they've had on a global scale of their, so.
And they did say it is things like cancellation of existing orders. It's all contract based.
Right. Yeah, I've heard a lot of that on the retail side. And the other next thing I think we're going to be dealing with, even on our smaller levels, is the supply chain, because the Chinese supply lines are not easily to replicate. And you go to any of the stores, my wife's taking me out, and even the Home Goods, TJ Maxx, like that, you go through them, they don't have supply because they haven't been able to receive it in. So there are other issues that are still out there. So I agree with Paige. I still try to just keep optimistic from the standpoint of at least we're moving forward. We're not in that hold pattern. And we just got to do the best we can of reaching out and seeing where we can assist for those that are impacted. I can't do much for Marriott, but I can do something maybe for the smaller hotels that are being hurt with the 31-day mandatory stays, which I know that's been a bone of contention not only for hotels but also for rent. People that depend on their rents for the summer times. So, all right. Anything else? So please, I encourage everybody, make your contacts, make the phone calls. I will discuss with Paige and Lauren about, can we get some cards started? And we'll do the beta on maybe for a few of us just to see what impact that's had. It's been positive, and then go from there. But we got some key dates coming up that I think it's just an easy phone call. We got the 8th, we got the 15th. We have the Explore Groton. We have a lot of things that just to make people aware of. So it's a pretty simple call. It's just a matter of you got to pick up the phone or email or even if you put your mask on and go out and stop at one of the places and have a conversation, which I've done a couple of times just to get out of the office. So anything else, guys?
Can you clarify the difference?
I have a question for John.
Hold on one second, George. Craig?
What's the difference in content between the 8th and the 15th? I heard the 8th one pretty clearly, but I'm not sure about the 15th.
The 15th is the marketing firm that Sam has that they've done before. That's really to give some additional tools that they've dealt with their own client base, because it's just something that maybe our businesses haven't even looked that way, because it's going to change and they might have some good insight because they've dealt with their own clients that way.
Great, thank you.
Was that a good statement, Sam? Did I cover?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can always find the information on the events page on exploremoregroton.com. So you can always refer them back to there, and the latest information, all the links will be on there.
Thank you. George, you had some follow up?
Yeah, I have a question for John and the staff. So PCC and Marriott, they are in the top 10 of our taxpayers, aren't they?
I don't know off the top of my head. They're employers. They're top 10 major employers.
I thought Marriott was amongst our top 10 taxpayers to the town, and PCC as well. So we can't do anything about Marriott, but John and Paige, if you're planning to have any conversation with PCC on what their plans and future and strategy, I'll be happy to join you guys with them in that conversation and see if they may want to keep their foothold in Groton and maybe even secure some other contracts.
Thank you, George. I did reach out. I know the mayor received correspondence, the town manager did, and then I personally reached out to PCC Structurals, had a short verbal conversation with a manager, and I sent a fairly extensive email to the general manager, but I did not hear back. I think it's important for us to realize, although locally we look at these companies as if they're local, they're nationwide, and when they are pinched to some degree and need to contract, they shift resources all over the place. Go to the website for PCC Structurals and you'll see how many facilities they have. They're all over the place. Actually, the highest concentration is west of the Mississippi. So I agree with you. We would love to keep them here as a foothold, but I'm not, this may sound pessimistic. I'm not necessarily convinced that we can do a whole lot regarding their workforce here locally when they're making wholesale changes at all of their facilities systematically nationwide. That doesn't mean we're not going to try, but it's not as if we're going to go down and talk with an owner at a store in Mystic. It's not the same. It's not the same level. Likewise, the same with the Marriott. We will try, but these decisions are being made outside of Connecticut regarding all of their facilities. So it really is somewhat of an uphill battle.
Well, the one Marriott is actually owned by the Waterford Group, if I'm not wrong. So, well, anyway, with the PCC, maybe if you were to reach out to them, let me know. I'll be happy to join you.
Thank you.
And I think they're in the same boat with Doncaster. And I know that DOD has slowed down their production work, and that's why PCC is impacted. But it's for sure that DOD is going to resume in October this year. So maybe, we can give them an optimistic message, and let's see if they can escalate that feedback and see maybe they won't shut it all together. That's just to be optimistic.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Bill, this is David. I just have a couple
Yes,
of comments, if that's okay. I didn't know when I should, when I should bring these forward during the conversation. I just save it till the end. A couple of comments. I just want to commend Lauren on that program and Paige and Sam on the Economic Development Initiative, which was fantastic. And I'm wondering if, I don't know if that was a cost to the city or the town, or was it with the gift certificates given out freely? Because I was wondering if that could be initiated again, because I would, as a business owner, I think many people would be willing to give gift certificates as like kind of bounce backs. Gift cards are one thing because you're going to pay all the fees on, but gift certificates where you offer, $20 or so many blizzards or so many cakes or whatever as like a Dairy Queen, people will provide them with no problem at all. So if that program were to be implemented again, I think you'd get a lot of people to be able to give those back freely. And with that being said, if we're going out into these businesses and touching them, it could be an opportunity for us to explain the program that the town of Groton has done. We could solicit the gift certificates and then give them to Lauren, and then Lauren could then email them back and say, thank you for the gift certificates, kind of a bounce back, keep the communication lines going and get that wealth of those gift cards, which kind of propel the business movement as that other one did. So just a thought to consider. Secondly, I don't know, maybe this is for John Burt. has there been any talk in the state, at the state level, for business interruption insurance, and whether or not the town and the cities want to ensure the state is extending that? Because I know like Massachusetts and New Jersey and New York are going out and they're pushing forward with their states and their governors to try to say you should extend that business interruption insurance, which would be a significant boost to all these businesses that closed down, because right now they're all closed and they're saying it doesn't constitute insurance. But if that could be done throughout the municipalities and get that forward, that would be a huge boost to these businesses that are closed down. And the last thing, I wasn't sure. I'm sorry?
I was just gonna say, I've not heard any talk of that. I don't know if Paige has.
I have not.
Okay. Just something, I don't know if you're pro or opposed to it, but, you know, states are, and it would be a big boost for businesses if we're able to do that. And then the third, I just received an email today about the CARES Act, and the EDA is pushing forward non-competitive revolving loan funds. And I'm not sure if that's something Groton's looking into, but it could be something to support businesses as well if you have that revolving loan fund. You know, everybody knows what a revolving loan fund is, but it could help support businesses that need that funding in the interim. So that's all. Just a couple of comments I wanted to make. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Yes, Paige.
I just wanted to comment. We were on a call with Sector about a week ago. I'm not sure, David, if that's the same EDA money that you referenced, but Sector has a chance to, they have a bead on some funding, and they had a number of options. They could basically hire a small business ombudsman, launch a small business program, update the SEDS, marketing, those types of things. Do you think that's the same funding that that you were talking about?
I think this may be different. I'll forward you the email. It's part of the CARES Act, specifically relating to economic development, but one of them was a revolving loan fund. So I'll send that to you and Sam and take a look at it too. Today.
What I believe with the funds is what they carved out a piece of unused PPP funds and dedicated that for economic community development type organizations, which were kind of excluded out of the gate for some of that stuff. So I think they just said, let's let them actually do some direct funding. So I think that might be a function of what both of you guys are talking about. It's kind of a separate part of the CARES Act. They just carved out of the payroll that wasn't used. I think it was a sizable amount too. And I think Sector is in the running for those funds.
I want to know how many blizzards are being donated.
Happy to do that. I mean, really, I mean, that's you know, I remember when I used to work with Jersey Mike's, they would give free food away. It was the best form of marketing ever. So I'm a big proponent of that, as I think most businesses are. So if you decide to have me, you know, if I go visit places and ask for gift cards, I'll give them back to Lauren if you guys want to move that way.
We like all ideas. Anything that is different is fine with me. All right. Any other comments or business to come up? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you, Paul. All in favor? Meeting's adjourned.
Hi.
Thank you guys very much. Paige, I'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.